Hi everybody, and welcome back to Teachers Talk Money, where I help teachers master their money in order to give back to themselves. I'm really excited for this video today because I've never done such a deep dive into my spending as this before. There are 7 days left in 2020 and I'm so excited for this year to be over. Obviously, I'm aware that nothing magical is going to happen on January 1st that's going to change the state of the world overnight. That being said, I love having arbitrary dates to mark big transitions. It's great to have a moment where I feel like I can start fresh for the year. That being said, reflecting on the past is just as important, and that is what we're gonna dig into today with my finances. You guys are used to seeing monthly snapshots of my finances, which are great, but I feel like a lot of the time that can sort of feel a bit out of context of the bigger picture. So today we're going to take a look at all of my yearly spending for the entire year of 2020, which is going to give you a little bit more context in the big picture of my finances and what my plans are for that. So I tallied up everything. I went through every month of my budget and tallied up all of my different monthly expenses, trying to be as specific as possible. So we're going to go through all the categories here. I didn't talk about any of the long-term savings I contributed to or the investment accounts I contributed to because I was trying to focus on things that I actually spent or saved to be spent in the near future. So let's dive in category by category and take a look at literally everything I spent this year. So the first category I wanted to talk about was housing, and this is just including my rent. This was the most stable category for the entire year because my rent stayed exactly at $900 a month, which is what I pay for my half of my and Brian's one-bedroom apartment that we rent in DC. This was also my most costly expense by far. It cost me $10,800 for the entire year to live in this apartment. This is something I have talked about a lot before. It's very, very expensive. However, it is something that is really important to me and part of my living a really balanced life while still pursuing financial independence. My lease is up in August, so this rent should remain pretty stable through 2021, up until at least August, and then it might change depending on if Brian and I renegotiate or if we decide to move apartments, which is totally undecided at this time. Next, I want to talk about insurance. So this includes my car and renter's insurance, which I have bundled through the same company. This does not include my long-term disability insurance or the life insurance that comes out of my paycheck every month. So my car and renter's insurance has been mostly steady with just one drop of $4 per month that happened during the year anniversary of me paying for that insurance. And this came out to a total of $1,012, which honestly is far more than worth it to me to have that kind of level of protection. That is really just a drop in the bucket and it makes me feel a lot more secure. Then I want to talk about my midterm savings. So as I said, I didn't include all the money I invested or any of the money that I saved for long-term goals. So everything that I deposited for my car replacement or travel or gifts or grad school, I kept in this category. Obviously, this is money I saved and not money I spent. However, everything I spent out of those accounts did not come out of my monthly budgets, so it was really hard to calculate exactly how much money I spent. So instead, I just counted my deposits as money spent towards these short-term savings goals. And this category totals $4,520. So I think this is technically my second biggest category next to rent. And once again, it's money well spent because it's spent on saving up for my next car when I need to replace my current one. It was spent on travel and on gifts and on grad school, so no regrets at all in this category. The next category I want to talk about is my utilities. These, surprisingly to me, remained extremely steady, and they also notably never went over $50 a month. Seeing this was actually really surprising to me because I thought that they varied a lot more than they actually do month to month. So I think I'm actually going to change the way that I format my budget templates based on this. The total I spent on utilities for the year was just $523. Now we're going to talk about groceries. This category varied a ton month to month, and it's the category I most often went over budget in. The $200 for December is just an estimate because I'm filming this before the month of December is over. So my total spending on groceries was $2,399, making it my third largest category after rent and midterm savings. It is exactly, if I get the $200 in December, it is exactly $1 under what I had budgeted for the entire year. So I may be looking into increasing this category in the future just so I don't end up cutting it so close in next year. And my next category is eating out, and I'm proud to say that this one I actually only went over budget in this category 1 month in all of 2020, which was extremely surprising to me because I feel like I'm spending so much money on eating out all the time. But in reality, I have that money in my budget, and I was actually able to spend much less than that. For this category, I budgeted $2,400 just as I did for groceries, but I only ended up spending $1,983, meaning I went over $400 under budget. Now we're going to talk about my other category, which is sort of my miscellaneous category that I use whenever I want to cash flow purchases like plants or clothes or decor or anything else in the month that comes up. It's a very broad category, and that is the reason why it has varied so much this year. The total amount I spent on miscellaneous things was $1,745. My next category is my gas category, and this was a very exciting one in 2020 because I saved so much money that I otherwise would have had to spend. So during a typical non-pandemic year, I spend about, or at least I budget about $110 for gas each month. I usually spend a little bit under that. I just sort of keep a little bit in as a buffer in case I end up having to refill my car one time unexpectedly. That means that any other year, I would spend about $1,320 for the year. This year, I literally spent a total of $310 on gas, all in all, which means that I saved over $1,000 this year on gas alone. Then there's my phone bill, which is the same every single month at $45 per month. And so I spent $540 on my phone service this year, which again is completely worth it to me. Then there's my subscriptions category, and these varied a lot for a number of reasons. I spent a lot on my Amazon Prime membership in the beginning of the year because that is something that I used to pay for yearly. And I got Audible for a few months in the summer. Since then, I've made a commitment to avoid Amazon, which means avoiding that Prime membership as well as canceling my Audible subscription. So I'm not going to renew my Prime membership, meaning I won't have that $100-something going towards it in January this year like I did last year. And not doing the Audible subscription will save me some money as well. So this year I spent $289 on subscriptions, which should decrease to about $120 for next year unless I add any new subscriptions. Then there's everything I spent on Hattie, and this category is a little wonky because early on I used my miscellaneous category to cover any expenses that came up for her each month, and that was just until I got a clear estimate of what I actually spend on Hattie month to month. When I determined that all of Hattie's medicine and food and treats and everything cost about $70 per month on average, I was able to just add that to my budget, and so that's why her costs sort of happened later than when we got her this year. In total, I spent $424 specifically on Hattie's regular needs, and then anything irregular, like especially a lot of vet appointments that she had this year, came out of a very large emergency fund that Brian and I built up for Hattie before we even adopted her. So that is all the categories, as specific and microscopic as I could have made them. So with all the months included, I spent $24,545 in 2020. This is a huge number for me to look at. This is a lot of money. But looking at all of the different categories, I actually don't have any regrets or feel any need to sort of start changing things, cutting back, or shifting things around. While my rent is highly, highly expensive compared to the rest of my budget, it is pretty much the most important thing to me in my budget right now. And so for me, I'm happy to say that the other parts of my budget don't take nearly as much of a percentage as my rent, because they simply aren't as important to me as living where I live. Also important to note that while I may have spent almost $25K this year, my net worth is still estimated to grow by over $20,000 for this year. Now, I don't know if I'll have met that goal. You'll have to check back in next week to see my net worth update to see if I reached my goal of growing to 20K net worth in the year 2020. So this means that technically I'm a little bit in the red for this year with the amount that my net worth has grown minus the amount that I spent this year, about $5,000 in the red. But this means that next year I'm actually on track to have my net worth grow more than the amount that I'm even spending that year, which is a pretty cool number to look at. I have to say, you guys, I really enjoyed doing this exercise and sort of adding up all of these numbers to really take a look at the big picture of my budget. And so I highly, highly recommend that. If you cannot do these totals because you have not kept a monthly budget for the year of 2020, 2021 is your year to start. If you haven't made a budget yet, go to the link in the description of this video and get my free budget templates. I've got a spreadsheet version and a pen and paper version, and they're the tools that I actually use to create my budget every single month. I literally could not have grown my net worth so much without them. Don't forget to stop back next week to see if I met my goal of growing my net worth by 20K in 2020. As always, please make sure to like this video, comment, subscribe. All of these things are amazing for growing my channel, and they mean the world to me personally. Have an amazing week, everyone. I will see you next week. Bye!